Hi, good evening, everybody. This is Meredith Lego, and I am doing a whole series of videos on my channel on the science of ascension, which is really the science of how we expand our consciousness and begin to achieve more evolution as beings or as humans. And today's video, I'm going to focus more on the continued development of the crystalline body and how that actually plays out within us as humans. And I'm doing this because I did a little bit of research over the last couple weeks trying to better understand a channel that I actually presented in my last video. It obviously got into more, call it chemical terms, chemistry and whatnot. And I took a little bit of time to do some research on it to better understand some of what the beings who I presented last week. It was a channeling that I had done from a collective consciousness, and they were again talking about changes to the human body. So let me kind of reread the few sentences that piqued my interest to do this research, and then I'll share with you more of what I discovered during the last couple of weeks. So the channeling I received was that in the organic path to ascension, and again, ascension is ascension of our consciousness, basically. The carbon atoms are losing or gaining electrons to become silicate. An ionization process with magnetized properties occurs due to the union of feminine and masculine energies or magnetic and electrical energies. This occurs as light codes alter the DNA sequence. The evolution is natural, whereas the transhuman path is synthetic or inorganic. So I'm not going to get into the rest of it, but I wanted to hone in on at least, giving you that kind of first paragraph that became my launching point for doing a little research. And so this last week, I really wanted to better understand the development more of the crystalline light body. And some of the things that I'm kind of building up in this YouTube video, I'm going to read a lot because I wrote a lot of notes here, is that if you kind of think about it, our body is really made up of kind of natural components that are the building blocks of atoms that we find in nature and on the periodic table. So, obviously we have oxygen, we have hydrogen that kind of makes up a lot of the water in our body. We have carbon, we have iron. So all these different, atomic structures that create the formation of our body. So we are elemental in nature. And when it actually comes to our bone structure is actually made of mineral crystals and of protein collagen. But the key thing is it's mostly made up of mineral crystals. Now that was pretty interesting to me because when I started actually kind of waking up through this journey, I think many other people in this community naturally start to get more gravitated towards crystals. And there are certain reasons for it. Crystals actually have the ability to house a lot of information within them. So, they're great holders of actually information. I mean, they're used in, microchips and processing. Quartz is put into watches. So there's a lot of great properties that crystals actually contain. But to learn more that it's actually part of our bone structure was pretty interesting. So as a crystal structure, they really serve as a main frequency transducer throughout our bodily matrices. So if you think about it, our bones are kind of like the things that run all the way through our bodies. So essentially, they're basically acting as a frequency transducer, honing in and taking in all the vibrational frequencies around us and going through our body and transducing it through our body as well. So that was an interesting find, which, has been known, I guess, for a long time, but I was just doing some more research on it myself. So I started then to look a little bit more into crystals and focused in a little bit more on quartz. So crystals are obviously, you can think about all the different crystals that are out there. Again, I'm going to focus more on quartz. There's obviously amethyst. There's all these different types of crystals, but what makes them unique is that they have a structure of a lattice matrix of different atoms that are within kind of the structure of how they are made and how they grow. So again, I'm going to focus in on the quartz. And the quartz specifically is made up of a continuous framework of silicate and oxygen. So it's silicate and oxygen in a tetrahedral construction, in which each oxygen atom is shared by two tetrahedrals. Thus, in this formation, the entire structure is not polar until it is subjected to a pressure in which it is put into a polarized state. So I'm going to kind of shoot up really fast a quick piece of paper that I wrote up to kind of show this. And so we talk about silicate dioxide. So this is a silicate atom and then two oxygen atoms. So you kind of, going back to chemistry, you've got silicate and they're double, I guess, covalent bonded with two different oxygen atoms. But when they talked about, when they kind of form as a tetrahedral formation, and there's actually four atoms that go into to create it. So you've got the silicate here and you've got four different oxygens that come together. And then what creates the other tetrahedron will be the same kind of geometry that's going like this. And through that process, it becomes sort of balanced, within that structure. So jumping back over to the learnings that I have is that crystals themselves are neutrally charged unless they've been programmed directly. And pausing right there, so let's say you've got like a quartz crystal that has multiple different sides to it. For each particular side that a crystal has, that is the number of sides that you can actually program information into the crystal. So you may not, maybe you've heard of that, maybe you haven't heard of that, but you actually have the ability to program through energy and tension into the crystals. So normally they'll hold a neutral charge until they become programmed, and they can obviously be programmed either positively or negatively in terms of their charge. And thus, because they're neutral, the electromagnetic charge must be balanced in the crystal. So crystals can become inactivated or made inert through a range of traumatic exposures. One of them, which was pretty interesting for me to learn about, beyond extreme sort of pulsed electromagnetic waves, is also artificial intelligence signals. So that's pretty important. So if you kind of go back to the original point that we actually have a crystalline, our bones themselves are made up of minerals that are crystalline. So our entire bone structure is crystalline. And what they're saying, or all the science that I've kind of been researching over the last couple of weeks, are suggesting that crystals become inactive or inert through harmful transmissions from one of the sources was artificial intelligence signals. Now, why is that important? Because in the last video that I did, which you can go back, one video back, or I'll put a link in this, in the comment, the description of this particular video, is that the collective consciousness I connected with last week was basically implying that the transhuman path, which mostly happens through artificial intelligence codes, if you will, source codes, if you will, is another frequency, and it's one that can be controlled. And I think the other thing that they said is that this particular transhuman path cannot evolve in a multidimensional ascension or consciousness past a certain point because the connection to the heart frequencies are severed. And it's with the organic, natural path that your ascension can become logarithmic in scale. So it can be that that very accelerated ascension path, that can help you grow as a being over very quickly. So following up on the learnings about the body, since our bones are crystals, the key to really restoring energetic balance and health is to understand that we really must sustain an abundant amount of, call it life force or chi, to circulate throughout our physical structure. And it's when you have those blockages that are going on that it really, limits the ability of that life force to be flowing freely throughout the multiple different organ systems that you have within your body. And one of the transducers of energetic force flowing through your body is your bone structure. Okay, so that's why it's very important. So the ability to absorb, amplify, absorb, store, and transmit all those different energies can have an effect on, in terms of, having a healthier and healthy, body situation. So the more neutral you can maintain your charge through your emotional bodies, so to speak. So the more that you can manage your emotions, not be as triggered on the different things that occur in your life, the more ability you have to maintain that structured crystalline lattice network within your body, within your bone structure, to allow those energies to flow more freely and to allow your bone structure to the way that it's supposed to work, in moving the energies through your body. So programming can come from others, obviously. We are programmed by others. So I am, in essence, a form of programming for you right now. So that's why it's very important for you to take your own discernment to everything that you hear and see in life by using your feelings and your intuition. Does it resonate with you or does it not resonate with you? And that programming can change the positive or negative charge within your whole body, and you will feel it to your core. You feel it. So again, I think that was pretty important, but I want to go on and talk about something else that I learned about the bone structure. And it has to do with a certain phenomena which crystals can be impacted by, called piezoelectricity. So piezoelectricity is the ability of a material to generate an internal electrical field or electric field when it's subject to a mechanical stress or a strain. So said another way, it's the electric charge that accumulates in certain solid materials, such as crystals. It can happen in ceramics, certain types of ceramics, biological matter like our bone, our DNA, some proteins that we would have in our body. And it's in response to an applied mechanical stress. Okay, so I'm actually going to include in the description to this video a great video that I watched when doing some research on what forms of mechanical stresses can occur to crystals to actually create a piezoelectric effect. But the way that you might know about, seeing it in action in sort of everyday life would be the source that creates the generating spark within cigarette lighters, or the Bic lighters, that you might use, let's say in the kitchen, or to light a fire outside, or to generate the spark for like a gas cook stove, or a heating device, or a torch, or something like that. I also learned that piezoelectric effect occurs through I'm sure, different ways that they generate it, including the production and detection of sound, which is kind of interesting, the generation of high voltage electricity. So those are kind of other applications of it. But one of the things that, obviously we talked about crystal structures and lattices occurring within our bone structure because we have a high mineral content within our bone, is that scientists apparently discovered, and I didn't look for the actual scientific paper, so I'm going to have to go on what I read here, is that they discovered that the bone was piezoelectric in 1957. So since then, excuse me, they found that piezoelectricity occurs when bone collagen fibers slide against each other. So that is the same thing as a mechanical force, where you might be hitting a crystal and it's creating effectively a charge through that process. So if you've got, bone collagen fibers sliding together, it creates a natural piezoelectricity within the body. So what happens is that this leads to an accumulation of charges and the generation of tiny currents, which open up calcium ion channels in bone cells called osteocytes. And that actually triggers the formation of new bone growth. So kind of regenesis of bone growth, which is kind of interesting. So it sounds like that's a positive case where that mechanical stress, within the bone structure is a formation of, creating, some natural organic process that would normally be happening within the human body. Now, when this is happening, I think it's occurring because there's some sort of an electrical charge that's happening. So if you kind of go back to what we learned about crystals, they're neutral. They're neutral in nature. So they've got an equal balance of the atoms or the electrons, I guess you could say, that are going on inside them. I think it's more of the atoms. And essentially what happens is that there's probably a shifting of the charge that's going on due to really a polarization process that's going on inside of the molecules. And in the last channeling that I did, the collective consciousness talked about ionization. But apparently ionization is very similar to to polarization. It's just that it's the same concept that's used to describe different components of matter. So ionization refers to the loss or gaining of electrons, which was talked about in my last channeling. But that happens, that kind of loss or gain of electrons happens in an atom, and through that process you form ions. Thus, ionization is associated with atoms. Now we know that atoms are the fundamental building blocks of matter, and multiple atoms form molecules. So it's those atoms that are forming things like quartz crystal, quartz crystals, which ultimately form out to grow over time. Or our bones sort of grow over time. So it's actually molecules, when they go through the same process, the actual chemical name for that process is called polarization, which is pretty interesting given all the teachings that I've been provided by these extra dimensional beings on the concept of polarity and polarization. So polarization is the process of separating opposite charges within an object. So the positive charge becomes separated from the negative charge. And this occurs through the displacement of shared pair of electrons towards a more electronegative atom in a covalent bond. And thus, the polarization is associated with a molecule. So essentially what it seems like what's happening is that when there's some sort of mechanical stress that's going on within, let's say, a crystal, it's causing the similar it's causing really a polarization to occur where you've got a change in charge, and that it sounds like that's what kind of creates the spark. But anyway, so I just wanted to pass on that learning. It's not necessarily that this is obviously being sourced from any of my connections with extra dimensional beings, but it's my own personal research to better understand more about the crystalline nature within the body, and how I'm assuming that over time, as we begin to clear more of the blocked energies within our body out, it allows our bone structures to become more transducers of the natural energies, or the chi energies, the kundalini energies. There's many names that go on around it, to begin flowing a little bit more freely through our body. And when they become more free, those energies aren't quite as blocked within our body structures. We essentially become less dense as beings and more crystalline as beings. So hopefully this has helped enhance your understanding of ascension, the process. Obviously a lot of what I've talked about has focused more on the consciousness shift, but this gets into the implications upon the body structure. So with that, I hope you have a really great rest of your evening, and I will see you in some future videos. Thanks very much. Bye.